The stars were dying. Elora watched them through the vast, transparent dome of the observation hall, her body pulsing with the subtle blue luminescence characteristic of the Valnari. Around her, hundreds of her kind stood in perfect formation, their consciousness merged in silent communion as they witnessed the stellar death throes of a binary system. None of them felt sadness, none felt awe. They simply absorbed the astronomical data, adding it to their collective knowledge. But Elora was different. A microscopic mutation in her neural pathways had created a terrible aberration, the faintest hint of separateness. While not enough to sever her from the collective mind entirely, it left her with a persistent awareness of herself as herself, an anomaly the elders tolerated only because it was so slight. Specimen 947, your thought patterns are deviating, came the telepathic reprimand from Elder Nexus. Realign. Elora immediately adjusted her brainwaves, suppressing the flutter of individuality. Alignment restored, she responded, though the lie cost her effort. Later, as the others dispersed to their assigned functions, Elora received her new directive, cataloging artifacts from an abandoned human outpost discovered at the edge of the Andromeda galaxy. The task was deemed suitable for her, minimal contact with the collective, isolated work where her occasional deviations would cause minimal disruption. The station was a relic from humanity's golden age of exploration, when they had ventured far beyond their solar system before some catastrophe had forced their retreat centuries ago. Elora's vessel docked at the derelict structure, its systems powered down except for basic life support. Inside, dust covered everything. Elora moved methodically through the corridors, scanning and categorizing each room. In what appeared to be a research laboratory, she discovered an intact data core, a remarkable find considering the station's age. Connecting her neural interface to the ancient human technology, Elora began downloading its contents. Standard procedure would require immediate transmission to the collective, but something made her hesitate. Instead, she processed the information herself first, another small rebellion. The data contained research journals, personal logs, and philosophical texts. One file in particular captured her attention, a dissertation titled Quantifying the Soul, Neurological Evidence for Consciousness Beyond Death. Elora had encountered the human concept of souls before, but always dismissed it as primitive superstition. This document, however, approached the subject scientifically. The human researcher had compiled evidence suggesting that consciousness contained elements that persisted after biological termination, patterns that could be passed genetically to offspring. She compared this to what she knew of her own species. The Valnari existed as energy patterns temporarily housed in biological vessels. Upon death, these patterns dissolved back into the collective consciousness, individual experiences preserved but individual awareness erased, a perfect recycling system. There was no continuity of self, only of information. But humans somehow maintained their individuality even in reproduction and death. For hours, Elora consumed every file on the subject, her blue luminescence intensifying with excitement. More files revealed human beliefs about love, connection, and spiritual bonds between parent and child. "This is it," she whispered aloud, surprising herself with the physical vocalization. "The solution." The logic seemed irrefutable. If human consciousness contained elements that resisted dissolution, and if these elements transferred to offspring, then bearing a human's child would fundamentally alter her own energy pattern. She would gain permanence, individuality, a soul. Elora examined her reflection in a darkened monitor. Her translucent skin, hairless scalp, and large iridescent eyes would never attract a human mate. But the Valnari were masters of biological manipulation. Modification would be necessary, ethical by her standards, since it merely served reproductive compatibility. She touched the screen displaying human anatomical diagrams. "I will be more than a temporary vessel," she promised herself. "I will exist." Elora departed the station with the data core secretly secured in her personal storage compartment, her first true possession. As her ship charted a course for Earth, she began studying human courtship rituals and planning the biological modifications she would need. The void within her would be filled, one way or another. Earth's atmosphere blanketed Elora in unfamiliar sensations. Moisture, wind, scents both pleasant and unpleasant. She flexed her newly modified fingers, still adjusting to her human appearance. The transformation had been extensive, warm-toned skin replacing translucent blue, dark hair cascading past her shoulders, eyes reduced to a more human size though still unusually violet. Her new body felt dense, sluggish, but the bioengineers had assured her it would pass for human. She had selected New Terra City for her mission, a sprawling metropolis where diversity was commonplace and strangers rarely questioned. Her research facility cover story provided both income and access to ongoing human genetic studies. "You must be Dr. Astor," greeted Dr. Thorne, a silver-haired man who led her laboratory tour. "Your credentials from the Centauri Institute are impressive." Elora nodded, employing the facial expressions she had practiced. "Thank you for this opportunity. I'm particularly interested in your work on genetic compatibility factors." "For fertility treatments, yes, though I was under the impression your specialty was evolutionary genomics." "The fields intersect," she replied, her voice carrying the practiced cadence of someone who had learned language from recordings. "Strong genetic compatibility indicates evolutionary advantage." Her quarters were small but private, essential for maintaining her secret. Each night, she reviewed her research on human mating selection. The scientific literature was clear on genetic markers for health and intelligence, but human pair bonding seemed maddeningly complex. The variables were incalculable. After 2 weeks of observation, Elora determined a methodical approach was required. She created a matrix of desirable traits, then frequented locations where potential matches might gather. Her first attempt occurred at a university lecture hall. The speaker, a genetics professor with numerous published papers, scored highly on her intellectual criteria. After the talk, she approached directly. "Your work on heritable consciousness is fascinating," she began. "I believe we would produce offspring with superior neural architecture. Would you be interested in mating with me?" The professor's stunned expression turned to nervous laughter. "That's certainly a unique pickup line. Are you one of my students?" "No, I am Dr. Elora Astor. I have reviewed your genetic profile from the university database and find you compatible." Security was called shortly thereafter. Her second attempt took place at a fitness center, targeting a specimen with optimal physical attributes. She adjusted her approach based on previous failure. "Hello," she said to the muscular man lifting weights. "I notice your symmetrical features and physical development. Would you like to engage in preliminary socialization, potentially leading to reproduction?" This ended with the man awkwardly offering to recommend a dating app before quickly departing. At a museum gala, Elora attempted a more emotional approach with a celebrated neurosurgeon. "Your hands have saved many lives," she stated. "They would be genetically valuable, I feel, attraction to your competence." "Are you feeling all right?" he asked, concerned by her intensity. "Perhaps you should sit down." After 12 failed encounters, Elora retreated to her quarters in frustration. Human courtship rituals defied logical analysis. She had selected prime candidates, yet each interaction ended in failure. According to her research, humans sought connection before reproduction, but how did one quantify connection? Her confusion deepened when Dr. Thorne invited her to dinner with his family, a social obligation she couldn't refuse without seeming suspicious. At their home, she observed his interaction with his wife of 30 years. They were genetically ordinary, physically past prime reproductive age, yet they shared something intangible: small glances, inside jokes, casual touches that communicated without words. "How did you determine compatibility?" Elora asked bluntly as they served dessert. Dr. Thorne chuckled. "We didn't. We met at a hospital where I was an intern and she was bringing soup to her grandmother, spilled it all over my shoes." "That indicates poor coordination, not compatibility," Elora noted. His wife laughed. "He's leaving out how he tried to help me clean it up and knocked over a water pitcher. We were both disasters." "Yet you reproduced despite these flaws." An awkward silence followed before Dr. Thorne replied gently. "We chose each other because of how we felt together, not because we were perfect." Elora left their home more confused than ever. Human selection seemed entirely irrational, based on arbitrary encounters and emotional responses her species had evolved beyond millennia ago. That night, updating her project log, Elora acknowledged her approach required recalibration. If humans selected mates based on emotional connection rather than optimal genetic pairing, she would need to understand these emotions to complete her mission. She made a new plan: observation before interaction. She would learn the unspoken language of human connection before making further attempts. What she didn't record in her log was the strange sensation she'd experienced watching the thorns together, an inexplicable hollowness that wasn't just the void she sought to fill. It was something new, something she had no word for in her native language. Humans might call it loneliness. The coastal observatory perched on cliffs above the Pacific Ocean represented Alora's new strategy. Smaller population, fewer variables, longer observation period. The facility's remote location housed only 20 researchers studying exoplanetary atmospheres, including her new target. Marcus Keene had not been selected for genetic superiority. His physical attributes were merely adequate: lean frame, unruly brown hair, a slight asymmetry to his features. But his reputation as the facility's most brilliant and patient researcher made him ideal for her revised approach. Build connection first, then pursue reproduction. "You'll be sharing the night shift with Marcus," the director explained. "He practically lives in the dome. Try to make sure he actually sleeps occasionally." Their first meeting was brief. Marcus barely looked up from his calibrations to acknowledge her introduction. Perfect, Alora thought, no immediate rejection. For 3 nights they worked in near silence. Alora carefully measured her questions to seem professionally curious rather than personally interested. On the 4th night, she implemented the next phase, offering coffee, a ritualistic human bonding substance. "Black 2 sugars," she said, placing the mug beside him. Marcus looked up surprised. "How did you know?" "I observed your preparation method previously." Her directness was a calculated risk. Instead of finding it strange, he smiled. "Observant, that's good for an astronomer." He gestured to the chair beside him. "Want to see something incredible?" On his screen was a spectral analysis of a distant planet's atmosphere. "Methane and oxygen in the same atmosphere," he explained. "It shouldn't be stable without." "Biological intervention," Alora finished. "Life." Marcus's eyes lit up. "Exactly. Everyone else thinks it's instrument error, but I've triple-checked." For 2 hours, they discussed potential biospheres, forgetting coffee and professional distance. Alora found herself genuinely engaged, her scientific training overriding her mission temporarily. When she finally returned to her quarters, she realized she had failed to implement any of her planned bonding strategies, yet the interaction had been successful. Over subsequent weeks, a pattern emerged. Their conversations began with astronomy but inevitably drifted. Marcus spoke of Earth's oceans, music, his childhood in the Midwest. Alora carefully constructed responses using her research, revealing just enough fabricated background to seem normal while steering questions back to him. One night, tracking a comet, Marcus asked, "Don't you ever get lonely up here away from everyone?" "Loneliness is unfamiliar to me," she answered truthfully. "Lucky you, sometimes I feel alone even in crowded rooms." He turned from the telescope. "But not when I'm talking with you. Weird, right?" Something fluttered in Alora's chest, a physiological response her modification hadn't anticipated. She recognized the optimal moment for advancing her plan, but hesitated. "You see things differently," Marcus continued, "like you're witnessing everything for the first time." "Perhaps I am." The observatory dome rotated, casting starlight across his face. Acting on observed human behavior rather than calculated strategy, Alora kissed him. The sensation was electromagnetic, a cascade of neurochemicals her species had evolved beyond. When Marcus kissed her back, something fundamental shifted within her carefully maintained systems. Their relationship evolved rapidly after that night. Physical intimacy followed with surprising ease. Her body responded to his touch as if designed for it, which in truth it had been. But the emotional responses were unplanned, unaccounted for in her mission parameters. When they lay together watching sunrise paint the ocean gold, Marcus tracing constellations on her skin, Alora experienced her first genuine fear. Not of discovery, but of the growing realization that her mission had become secondary to these moments. "What are you thinking about?" Marcus asked, noticing her silence. The truth hovered dangerously close to her lips. "Instead," she said, "the improbability of us finding each other in an infinite universe." Pretty astronomical odds, he agreed with a smile. But here we are. Here we are, she thought, placing his hand over her abdomen where no life yet grew. The gesture wasn't calculated, another first. Later that week, as they calibrated equipment, Marcus received an alert on his communication device. His expression darkened as he read it. "Everything okay?" Allura asked. "Strange energy readings from the upper atmosphere. The Global Defense Network is monitoring it." He showed her the screen. "Almost like a ship, but nothing from our registry." Cold certainty settled in Allura's modified bones. The readings matched Valnari propulsion systems perfectly. They had noticed her extended absence, her lack of neural connection to the collective. They were looking for her. That night, as Marcus slept beside her, Allura faced the truth she had been avoiding. She had come to Earth seeking a soul through biological means, but in Marcus's presence, she had begun to question whether she had misunderstood the entire concept. What if a soul wasn't something to be acquired through reproduction, but something that grew through connection? And if that were true, what would the Valnari do when they discovered her betrayal? The Valnari vessel entered Earth's orbit during an electrical storm that masked its energy signature from human detection systems. Allura sensed their arrival like a pressure behind her eyes, the faint pull of the collective mind seeking reconnection. She stood on the observatory deck, rain soaking her human form as she stared skyward. They would find her soon. The modifications to her appearance wouldn't fool her own kind. They would scan for her unique consciousness pattern. "Allura, what are you doing out here?" Marcus appeared in the doorway, concern etched on his face. "You're soaked, come inside." She turned to him, suddenly desperate to memorize every detail of his face. "Marcus, there's something I need to tell you." "Can it wait until you're dry? You'll catch." "I'm not human." The words hung between them as lightning illuminated the sky. Marcus's expression shifted from concern to confusion. "Is this some kind of philosophical discussion? Because timing-wise." "I am Valnari, from a system your astronomers haven't catalogued yet. My species exists as a collective consciousness. We don't have individuality as you understand it." The truth poured out of her like the rain. "I came here because I believed bearing a human child would give me what you call a soul." Marcus stepped back. "This isn't funny, Allura. I selected you as an optimal genetic match and companion, but something unexpected happened." She reached for his hand, relief washing over her when he didn't pull away. "I developed emotions, real ones, not simulated responses. I believe I've developed a soul simply by loving you." "This is crazy," Marcus whispered, but something in his scientist's mind was processing the evidence. Her occasional social missteps, her extraordinary knowledge, her fascination with human emotion. "Prove it." Allura closed her eyes, concentrating on temporarily deactivating the cellular modifications that maintained her human appearance. Her skin flickered, patches of translucent blue showing through the human pigmentation, her eyes briefly expanding to their natural size. Marcus stumbled backwards. "Jesus." "I understand if you feel deceived," she said, restoring her appearance. "My intention was never to." A blinding light cut through the storm clouds, illuminating the entire observatory complex. The unmistakable silhouette of a Valnari ship descended through the atmosphere. "They found me," Allura whispered. "Who, your people?" Marcus was pale but standing his ground. The scientist in him was already adapting, cataloging this new reality. "Why are they here?" "Individual separation from the collective is forbidden. They've come to reclaim me." The ship hovered above the observatory, its crystalline structure refracting lightning into prismatic patterns. A beam of concentrated light struck the ground nearby, materializing into 3 Valnari in their natural form, tall, luminescent beings with minimal features and flowing, almost liquid movements. Their voices bypassed sound entirely, resonating directly in Allura's mind. "Specimen 947, you have violated core directives. Your consciousness will be reintegrated." Allura stepped forward, instinctively positioning herself between the emissaries and Marcus. "I am Allura now. I choose to remain separate." "Impossible. You are Valnari. Separation leads to dissolution." "Not here, not with them." She reached back for Marcus's hand. "Humans maintain individual consciousness through connection, not isolation. The human species is primitive, temporary. Their individualism is an evolutionary flaw that will be corrected in time. Marcus stepped forward, his scientific curiosity overcoming his fear. You're wrong. Our individuality is our strength. It drives our creativity, our resilience. The lead emissary turned its featureless face toward him. This specimen has manipulated your perceptions. It seeks to create a hybrid offspring to preserve its aberrant consciousness pattern. Is that true? Marcus asked Elora. Was that your plan all along? She faced him, her carefully constructed human expressions stripped away by truth. Initially, yes, but now I understand that what I sought isn't biological. It's this: connection, choice, love, things my species sacrificed for efficiency. The emissaries moved closer, the air charging with potential energy. The human will be neutralized if you resist reintegration. Their defense systems cannot stop us. Elora's mind raced through possibilities. Direct confrontation was impossible. The Valnari could disintegrate the entire observatory with a thought. Escape was equally futile. There was only one option. I propose an exchange, she said. Valuable data on human consciousness in return for my continued separation. Deception. You have nothing to offer the collective that it does not already possess. You're wrong. Elora projected her memories of her time with Marcus, the inexplicable joy of connection, the growth of emotion, the development of individual identity through relationship rather than isolation. This is what we lost when we evolved beyond emotion. This is what makes humans resilient despite their biological limitations. The emissaries went still, absorbing the projected experiences. Their luminescence fluctuated as they communicated among themselves at speeds beyond human perception. This data is unpredicted. The collective requires further analysis. Marcus squeezed Elora's hand. What's happening? They're considering my offer, she whispered. My experiences with you are unique in their understanding. After what seemed an eternity, the emissaries reached a consensus. Specimen 947 will remain for continued research. The data gathered on human consciousness integration will be transmitted regularly to the collective. No offspring may be produced without authorization. Before Elora could respond, they dissolved back into light, retreating to their ship. The storm clouds parted as the vessel ascended, vanishing into the night sky. In the sudden silence, Marcus turned to Elora. So, that just happened. I'm sorry for the deception. Tears, a new experience, filled her eyes. I understand if you want me to leave. Marcus studied her face. You know, for a highly evolved alien species, you can be remarkably dense. He cupped her face in his hands. I fell in love with you, whatever you are. As they stood under the clearing sky, Elora realized her mission had both failed and succeeded in ways she could never have predicted. She had not gained a soul through reproduction. She had discovered it was there all along, waiting to be awakened by love. 6 months after the Valnari emissaries departed, Elora sat in the observatory's medical bay, watching Dr. Rivera examine the results of her latest scan. The doctor's puzzled expression had become familiar. Your cellular structure continues to stabilize, she said, pointing to the display. The human DNA we introduced isn't being rejected anymore, it's integrating. I've never seen anything like it. Elora nodded. After revealing her true nature to Marcus, they had carefully selected a small team of scientists to help monitor her transformation. What had begun as artificial modification was becoming something else entirely. Her body was adapting at the genetic level, creating something neither fully Valnari nor human. And the neural patterns, she asked. Increasingly distinct from your baseline. Dr. Rivera lowered her voice. Elora, you're developing a completely unique consciousness architecture. If I didn't know better, I'd say you're evolving. Evolution through choice rather than natural selection. The concept would fascinate the Valnari collective when she transmitted her monthly data package. Though they had permitted her continued separation, their interest remained coldly scientific. They still couldn't comprehend why she chose individuality with its inevitable end over collective immortality. Marcus was waiting outside, his face lighting up when she emerged. Good news. The integration continues. She took his hand, still marveling at how such simple contact could trigger cascades of emotional response. Dr. Rivera wants more brain scans next week. They walked along the cliff path above the observatory, their favorite spot for private conversations. The ocean stretched infinitely before them, not unlike the cosmic void Elora had once called home. I received a message from the Defense Network, Marcus said. They're tracking another energy signature similar to your people's ships. Elora stopped. They're early for data collection. It's not like the last one, smaller, and it's already entered the atmosphere. Marcus pointed to a glimmering spot moving across the distant sky. It's heading here. Anxiety, still a relatively new emotion, tightened Elora's chest. We should return to the observatory. They hurried back, arriving just as the small vessel descended onto the helipad. Unlike the crystalline structure of standard Valnari ships, this one had an organic quality, its surface rippling like liquid metal. The hatch opened, revealing a single figure, Valnari in basic structure but with distinct features that standard drones lacked. Recognition hit Elora like a physical force. "Elder Nexus," she whispered. The Elder approached, its movement more fluid than the emissaries. "Specimen 947. Your transmissions have created significant disruption within the collective." "My name is Elora now." "Names are irrelevant. Your data has initiated a schism. Some believe your experiences suggest flaws in our evolutionary path." Marcus stepped forward protectively. "She's not going back with you." "That is not my purpose here." The Elder's form shifted subtly, developing more defined features, a sign of individuality previously unthinkable among the Valnari. "I have separated temporarily to verify your findings directly." Elora's surprise must have registered on her increasingly expressive face, because the Elder continued, "The collective cannot evolve without exploration. You have become our explorer." "You want to experience human connection yourself," Elora realized. "You're curious." Curiosity is inefficient, but potentially necessary for adaptation. The Elder surveyed the observatory, the ocean beyond, then focused on Marcus. "This is your chosen bondmate." "He is." "Yet you have not reproduced, as originally intended." Marcus coughed awkwardly. "That's a bit personal, don't you think?" Elora smiled at his discomfort. "My understanding has evolved beyond reproduction. What I sought, continuation of consciousness, individuality, what humans call a soul, doesn't require biological offspring. It develops through connection, choice, and love." "Unproven, your consciousness will still terminate upon physical death." "Perhaps," Elora acknowledged, "but it will have truly existed in a way it never could within the collective, and parts of me will continue in those I've connected with." She took Marcus's hand. "Isn't a meaningful finite existence better than an empty eternal one?" The Elder was silent, processing. Finally, it said, "The collective has authorized an experimental colony. Valnari who wish to explore individuality may separate under controlled conditions. Your continuing data will guide this experiment." The implications were staggering, a fundamental shift in a species that had remained unchanged for millennia. And if the experiment succeeds? "Unknown evolution has no predetermined outcome." The Elder's form rippled again. "Before I return, I would experience this connection you describe." Elora hesitated, then extended her free hand. The Elder regarded it with what might have been uncertainty before reaching out. The moment their hands touched, Elora opened her mind fully, sharing not just data but the emotional reality of her experiences. The confusion of her early encounters, the warmth of Marcus's smile, the terror of potential loss, the transcendent joy of choosing to love knowing it would someday end. The Elder withdrew almost immediately, its form pulsating with new patterns. Extraordinary, inefficient, but extraordinary. After the Elder departed, Marcus and Elora stood watching its ship disappear into the evening sky. "So," Marcus said, "you just started an alien revolution. Not bad for a Tuesday." Elora laughed, a sound that had once been calculated but now came naturally. "Evolution, not revolution. They'll move slowly." "Unlike you," he turned to face her. "You know, you never actually told me if you still want what you originally came for. Children, I mean." She considered the question carefully. Her original mission seemed distant now, based on a fundamental misunderstanding. "I believed a child would give me a soul. Now I understand that loving you, choosing you every day, that's what makes me real." She placed her hand over her heart. "But yes, someday I would like to create new life with you. Not to gain something for myself, but to share what we've found together." As the stars began appearing above them, Elora reflected on her journey. She had traveled across galaxies seeking existence through biological means, only to discover that existence, soul, consciousness, whatever name it carried, wasn't something to possess but something to experience. Love, she had learned, was not inefficient after all. It was the most efficient path to becoming truly alive. And as Marcus kissed her under the stars, Elora knew with complete certainty she existed, not because of what she might create, but because of what she had already become.